2, 1. All right. So first of all, I'm going to tell you that you guys turned in a lot of freaking work last night. I got 320 assignments turned in the last 24 hours. Yeah. That is not funny, Alex. You should not be laughing. It's pretty insulting. It's pretty insulting. So I have not looked at your stuff yet. I'm going to let myself kind of calm down for a couple of days, and then I'll look at it. So I'm not grading angry. Otherwise, I'm just going to give you guys a less, and I don't. Right? I'll give you guys F's later. Right? Okay. So let's look at the new term. The new term. We look at our modules. Let's see here. South Africa. Okay. Quarter 3 projects. All right. So for quarter 3, we have this big project that we got to do. Okay, so it's a developing democracy interview, right? So the developing democracy interview is the project for quarter 3, and what you're going to do is you're going to pick a topic from India or Ireland, either one, India or Ireland. You're going to pick a topic about the development of the democracy in that place. Okay. Let's see here. India or Ireland and the development of the democracy in that place. You can pick any kind of topic. You can pick like a person or a set of laws or an event, as long as it's tied into how the democracy of India or the democracy of Ireland is created. Okay. This comes in 4 parts, and it's going to be a presentation that you're doing. Okay, so the first is a prospectus. You're going to give me a prospectus by the end of the month. Prospectus is pretty easy. It's basically just a paragraph telling me what you want to do, right? What topic you're going to choose and what you're planning on doing. That's what the prospectus is. And it's relatively straightforward. It's not very long. It's less than 500 words. 500 words, anything more than 500 words, and I'll give you an F and make you do it again. I don't want to read too much. All right, so that's what you do at the end of this month. Okay, the next part is the works cited page, which again, you have to do the prospectus in order to do, they unlock each other, right? You must do prospectus in order to do the works cited page. You must do the works cited page in order to do the presentation. Okay, the works cited page is due 24 hours before you do your interview, and it's just a works cited page, obviously. You can't just show up, for your interview without your sources. I don't want to hear about whatever thing you're making up, right? Does that make sense? Hold on, there we go. My screen's all messed up. Okay, so that's that. So let's get to the visual component and the oral component. Okay, the visual component of your paper is, the visual component of your project is really diverse. It can be any number of things that you can choose, right? A lot of my students last year chose, well, the majority choose PowerPoints, which are okay. You can certainly do a PowerPoint, but it's hard for me to conceive what a 100% PowerPoint looks like, because PowerPoint just isn't as good, right? But a lot of the students chose to come in and they did triboards or they did posters. I have some examples in my room. I'm gonna walk here for a moment. Like here's a one about women's rights in India from last year. This one's Operation Blue Star. It's something we'll learn about in India, right? And she had it all presented where she like opened up all the sections opened up, and then the back had different things on it, and she did her whole presentation that way. I had this thing was part of a whole presentation that the student did, where he had the whole thing like laid out as this like almost a play, and then he had like a supplemental like PowerPoint that went with it and stuff. I had a student who like brought in a guitar and like played a song he wrote. I had a student who did like a dramatic monologue, and then had other things attached to it. It's really wide open. I want you to be able to express yourself in the way you want to express yourself, right? The only thing I don't want is a research paper. Okay, you've already proven to me that you can do research papers. at least in theory, in the first and second quarters, right? And so I don't want another research paper. This is supposed to be something different. You are not graded on your artistic ability. Okay, it's not an art class. I had a student last year who was not artistic at all, very, very unartistic. And so what he did was he printed off like a little, like he made like a little bound little kind of a booklet of like graphs and tables and stuff on some like economic topics. And he presented like an economic topic for me. And his visual element was a bunch of that kind of stuff, right? And that was perfectly fine. It wasn't artistic, but it worked. What your visual element needs to be is the visual element needs to enhance the presentation. Okay? It needs to be something that is enhancing the words coming out of your mouth. Okay? Do not read to me. Okay? Do not make like a triboard with a whole bunch of paragraphs that you've cut and you've glued on, and then you are just, reading them to me. That is a nightmare from which I will never escape. Okay, that guarantees an F if you do that. Do not do that. Okay. Do you have questions about the visual element? The visual elements due on the day that you do your presentation, obviously. And there's a place on Canvas you can turn it in. If it's digital, you can turn it in on Canvas. Obviously, if it's physical, you don't turn it in on Canvas. For you guys especially, we can do it over Zoom if you want to do it over Zoom. I prefer to do it in person just because in person it's better in like basically every way. But I also understand, right? Zoom is Zoom. This is, the nature of things. So if we do it over Zoom, then that's fine. Okay. You'll just have to let me know if we're going to do it in person or over Zoom. That's up to you. Cool. All right. So let's look at the oral component. The oral component, so visual and oral are both 100 points each. So this project is a 200-point project. Okay. So the oral component is your actual presentation. Okay. Your presentation has to include within it a thesis statement, you're making an argument, and then the evidence that you're presenting about your argument. Okay. It's basically like a research paper, but it's a research paper that you're presenting orally. The oral component goes into two sections. The first is your presentation, and the second is question and answer. So I will ask you questions based on whatever it is your topic is. Okay. And then you'll have to field the questions and answer them. Okay. This is just with you and me. You're not doing it in front of the class. You don't have to get up and do public speaking. You could just do it with just you and me, right? And we'll do it before school, after school, during app. We can schedule a Zoom if that's what we want to do, okay? You can use note cards or notes if you want to, but doing so lowers your grade. The more you use notes, the lower it goes, right? A lot of students will have note cards because they're preparing and they'll have note cards, and then they'll just set them to the side and they won't even use them. If you do that and you don't even use them, then I'll just like ignore them, right? Or sometimes people have note cards where the only thing on it is like a person's name, that they don't know how to pronounce the person's name or something like that. And so they'll show me the name, something like that. That's fine. What I don't want you to do is read to me. Okay. Nobody over the age of 5 wants to be read to. All right. The question and answers, let's deal with that real quick. The questions and answers the purpose is not for me trying to like prove how smart I am or like to stump you. Like, it's not like riddle me this and I'm like trying to brain tease you, right? I don't want to fail you. That's not the point. The questions are meant to get you to say more, to get you to talk about it in a different way. Usually what I plan to do is based on your prospectus, I usually think of like a counter argument. So whatever your thesis is, I try to think of a counter argument and I present the counter argument to you. And then you kind of address it, and you can address to what extent do you agree with the counter argument or not, right? And you can address that. Again, a lot of the times what happens is the questions are things that you kind of missed in your presentation. This happens a lot with students who get really nervous, right? It's a 20-minute total time period, and I'll have a student who's like done in 2 minutes, right? And they're just like, and I'm done. And I'll be like, whoa, okay. And so I'll ask them something that they missed. Say, okay, you mentioned this, but can you expand it on this a little bit? And they'll be like, oh yeah. And then they go off for like 5 minutes on the topic because they just got nervous and forgot, right? That's fine. Okay. That's fine. That's what happens a lot of times. Okay. You are not being graded on anxiety. The class is not a public speaking class. You're not being graded on anxiety. I had a student who, like 4 or 5 years ago, vomited into my trash can. She vomited into my trash can. She came back 3 days later and she got an A. All right, I let her. We just stopped right there. Vomiting will stop, right? But she came back a couple days later and got an A, right? Like I'm not going to mark you down for being nervous. Okay. I am going to mark you down. The two fastest ways to fail. Number one is read to me. Okay. I promise you I know how to read. I promise you I do. Right. I can read your presentation. I can read the poster on my own. Okay. So number one way to fail is to read to me. Number two way to fail is to make it up. This happened with one student last year where she started, I asked her a question, she didn't know the answer, and so she just started making it up, right? And I even like a minute, like it took me a minute to figure out that she was making it up, right? And so I asked her and I said, wow, that's different than anything I've heard before. Are you sure it's not this way? And she's like, nope. And she doubled down on it and started making stuff up even more. Out of 20 minutes, she spent like 8 minutes in Fantasyland, right? Taking me on a journey through Fantasyland for 8 minutes. And I was like, wow, this is a nightmare. Okay. So don't do that. If I present a counter argument and you don't know the counter argument, right? Like I'll say, have you ever considered, X? And you can say, well, I hadn't really considered X, but I did think of the counter argument Y. And I'll say, oh, okay, why don't you tell me about that one? And then you present the counter argument. You know what I mean? Like the purpose is not to like riddle you about things. The purpose is not to do that. Okay. So I want you to feel more comfortable with that. Do you guys have questions about the presentation, about what I want? Okay. The schedule, we'll be putting it on here. You have to tell me the schedule and I'll adjust it. It's on Canvas. I can't let students adjust it. Otherwise students, screw with each other and like erase people's names and stuff like that. Okay. The absolute 100% absolute last day is this week right here. Absolute last day is going to be probably March 11th. I think I'm going to take this Friday day off here because I need to grade stuff on that last day. But March 11th is the absolute last day. Okay. Do not schedule an appointment and blow me off. If you schedule an appointment and I'm there and you blow me off, you get an automatic 0 and you have lowest priority in letting you retake things. Okay. Because I scheduled my time for you, right? If something happens where you've scheduled something and then something comes up and we need to adjust your schedule, that's fine. I can work with you, right? But if you just blow me off, then we've got a problem. Okay. I'm going to warn you now, this last week is going to be a nightmare because everyone is going to try to go in the last week. I strongly, 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 strongly suggest you try to go as early as you can go. I can do an interview as early as tomorrow if you want me to, right? So the time doesn't matter. If somebody wants to go in January, by all means, let's do it in January. That's fine, right? But I strongly suggest you go early. All mark days that I'm unavailable as we go. I'm going to give you a heads up that this week, the week of the 26th, is probably almost the whole week is going to be gone because they have parent-teacher conferences and then mock trial is probably also going to be there, right? So I'm not going to be available for hardly anything that week. But all the other weeks ahead of time is good to go. Okay. As soon as you know a date that you want to go, let me know. Just shoot me an email or tell me on one of the Zoom classes or something like that. You tell me and I'll put your name on there. Okay. But what I suggest you do is I think you should do this in the next week or two. I think you should have your prospectus ready by the end of the week. I think you should. Okay. I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend that you get your textbook out, you look through India, you look through Ireland, you find something interesting and you lock in on it. Okay? Early is by far better, and it will help you a million trillion times. Okay? Do we have questions? Anyone have questions, comments, problems?
So you mentioned someone using a guitar, they did a song.
Yeah.
What was the visual element, or was the
So
guitar the visual element?
yeah, so I was actually ready to count his visual performance as the visual element, but he also made a PowerPoint with it that had some pictures and stuff that went along with it, and he had like a printout of the lyrics and stuff. So in that case, he had a combination of the two, right? And he did really well. It was a little bit weird to have him like serenading me with a guitar. That felt a little bit strange, but other than that, it was really good. Yeah, it was really good. With the visual element, I want to be pretty flexible. I want to let you guys, do stuff, right? I did this before with AP Geography. I had a student do an animation video, right? And his video ended up being really short, so he ended up doing other stuff too because he ran out of time. But you know, I'm flexible with whatever it is, and if you are thinking creatively and you're thinking of something different, talk to me about it and we can work out something that'll work. Cool. I want you to be able to be creative. Give me a thumbs up if you are with me, if you understand, you don't have any significant questions. Okay. All right. So if you have more questions, of course, shoot me an email. We can talk about it. Cool? Okay. All right. So let's get going on to, let me plug in my other camera real quick. All right. Can you guys all hear me? Are we all good? We're all good? Okay. All right. So just like we always do when we start a new country, we need to start with a little bit of geography corner, right? So for India, we're gonna get started here. Okay, so first we need to draw India. And I'm including Pakistan, I'm including Bangladesh, right? So India is gonna be something like this. Okay, it's gonna be roughly that shape. And we're gonna have this here. All right, so we have Pakistan is over here, Pakistan. Up here we have the big rectangle is Nepal. The smaller rectangle is Bhutan. And then the square over here is Bangladesh. And then the island down on the bottom is Sri Lanka. Okay, the big middle part is India. Okay, we're going to use the word India in two ways. Sometimes when we say India, we mean the country. Sometimes when we say India, we mean the whole region of India. Okay, so depending on what time we're talking about, where we are in our timeline, India can mean either the whole region or just the country. All right. For the first couple of lessons, India will be the whole region, including Pakistan and Bangladesh, right? But that's where we are in the very beginning. Okay, let's do some physical geography stuff now. Okay, by far and away, the most important physical geography thing is the Himalayan mountains, which go from this whole top, basically the entire top. Okay, the Himalaya mountains, and you can make some notes here on the side. The Himalaya are, a note of word here. The word Himalaya is already plural. It's technically not correct to say Himalayas, right?
most people in English do say that, but they're technically wrong. Okay, so the Himalaya or the Himalayan mountains, the Himalaya are the tallest mountains in the world. It's where Mount Everest is. It's where the 14 of the tallest mountains, the 14 tallest mountains in the world are all in the Himalayas. Okay, they oftentimes call it the rooftop of the world. That's the word that we use. Okay, the Himalayan mountains are the tallest mountains on the planet, and they are so tall that they change the weather pattern for all of Asia. Okay, and that's really important that you understand that. The Himalayas are so tall, they're so big, that they actually change the weather pattern for all of Asia, for all of Central Asia, for China, and of course for India. Okay, they are really, really big. For most of Indian history, you couldn't pass the Himalayas. In fact, you still can't pass through the Himalayas in most places, right? There's only a couple of locations where there's roads, right? For most of the time, it's really, really, really high, okay? The last thing you need on the Himalayas is it's the source of all water, okay? It's the source of all the water because it's where the snow falls, it's where the glaciers are, it's where almost every river across India comes out of the Himalayas, okay? Not every river, but most of them. Okay, most of the rivers are coming out of the Himalayas, which means he who controls the Himalaya control what everyone drinks. Okay, like 12 countries drink the water out of the Himalaya, right? So he who controls the Himalayas controls the entire region. This is going to matter here because our first regional conflict is Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir. All right, Jammu and Kashmir. All right, you can make a note here off to the side. Jammu and Kashmir is a region of the Himalaya that is claimed by both India and Pakistan. Okay, India claims the whole thing, Pakistan claims the whole thing, and then China claims one little section of it. This is a point of big time conflict, and this is the source of, I think, 6 different wars between India and Pakistan. All right, including a small war last year between the two. Okay, so this is a big point of conflict. We're going to deal with it more as we move on. We are definitely doing some lessons on Kashmir and Jammu and Kashmir later on, but for now, all you need to know is where it is for now. But we're definitely coming back to it later. All right. There's one last part of the physical geography that you need, and it's the monsoon. The monsoon. Tyler, do you know what a monsoon is?
No.
No? Tiffany, how about you?
No, sorry, I don't know what it is.
Dhruv tries to answer every question. Dhruv, what's a monsoon?
Isn't it like a type of wind that goes and comes and it causes a lot of storms?
Yeah. So Dhruv, yeah, your answer is pretty correct. The monsoon, most people, most Americans, most English speakers think of monsoon and it means a heavy rain. In their mind, they think heavy rain, right? Like it's raining really bad and you say, oh, it's a monsoon outside. That's how most people use the word, and that's wrong, okay? Dhruv is much closer. The monsoon is the seasons caused by the Indian Ocean, okay? India doesn't really have like a winter, summer, spring, and fall. They don't really have seasons, right? The equator is running through the bottom of India here. And so India doesn't really have seasons. What India has is rain or wet and dry. About 6 months worth of dry, about 6 months worth of wet. Okay. And they're both called the monsoon. Okay. The way that this works is that the currents of the Indian Ocean half the year they're going clockwise, and the other half of the year they're going counterclockwise. And so because of that, it changes the nature of like shipping traffic. It changes the nature of weather, right? Depending on if the water is, if India is receiving warm water or receiving cooler water, right? That'll determine whether India is wet or dry, right? Now, I can see Ilha right now. Ilha is like, what the hell, Veenstra? I didn't sign up for weather class. I get it, man. Dude, I get it, Ilha. Ilha, I hate weather. Done. All right. The reason why we care about this is because the monsoon determines the life cycle of India. Okay. And you need to make a note on the side here where you have monsoon listed. It's the life cycle of India. And this matters because protest movements and like riots and violence are always worse in the dry season, right? And if a protest is breaking out in India, the leaders look at it and they look at the calendar. If the dry season is going to be done in just a couple of weeks, they do nothing and let the protest go. But if the dry season still has 4 months to go, then you got to do something about it, right? And so these like violence move, like outbursts of violence and outbursts of protests and outbursts of like anti-government demonstrations, they live and die with the monsoon. And if you study Indian history, especially ancient Indian history, like before the Industrial Revolution, they talk a lot about India breathing. It breathes in wet, it breathes out dry, right? It breathes in for 6 months, it breathes out for 6 months. It breathes in, it breathes out, it breathes in, it breathes out. And India changes based on that rain or based on the dry, okay? This also helps determine famines. India has, for most of its history, had a very difficult time dealing with food security. Very difficult time dealing with food security, right? And so it's one of the things that we're dealing with this monsoon. Okay, it's going to be coming back as we go through this. All right, so let's deal with some cities. All right, so let's start off. The first city you need is Delhi, which is right here. Delhi, D-E-L-H-I, Delhi. That's the capital. Technically, the capital today is New Delhi, but New Delhi is in Delhi, right? So we'll just stick with Delhi for now. All right, so Delhi is right there. It's the most populated region of India, okay? The next two big cities that we need, really big cities, is right here. Mumbai, M-U-M-B-A-I, Mumbai. But oftentimes when you read about it, you're going to encounter it called Bombay. I don't want you to get confused. Bombay was just the British name for Mumbai. Today we call it Mumbai. Back then they called it Bombay. Same city. Don't get confused. Okay. The next really big important city that you need is Calcutta. Okay. The modern spelling is Kolkata. Okay, but the British spelling is Calcutta. Calcutta. Again, same city. Same city, it's just different spellings, right? After Indian independence, they wanted everyone to call it Calcutta. All right, your note here is Calcutta is a really important city for culture. It's a really important cultural city. It's like a center of like education and universities and stuff. Mumbai is a really important economic city. It's like an industrial trade economic city. Okay. Moving down, we have Bangalore. And Hyderabad. Oh, I'm sorry, I flipped those. Okay. We have Hyderabad, 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 Hyderabad. And then we have Bangalore, Bangalore. Okay. Those are two big important cities. A lot of stuff happens in those cities. All right, now we have two kind of smaller cities that we need, but they're both really important. All right, the first one is Varanasi, which is right here. Varanasi, Varanisi, Varanasi. Varanasi is relatively speaking smaller. It's a smaller city. Varanasi is the most important city in Hinduism. So it's the holy city of Hinduism. It's according to Hindu tradition, it's the oldest city on the planet Earth. According to Hindu tradition, oldest city on the planet Earth. Hindus go on pilgrimage to Varanasi every year, or as often as they can, every couple of years or whenever. Many people try to have their bodies cremated in Varanasi so that ashes can be spread into the river, the Ganges River, which I think in Hindi you're supposed to say Ganges. Is that right? I don't know. In English they say Ganges. All right, so but the Ganges River is where you're supposed to lay your ashes. It's like the holy river that runs through the middle. Manvith, were you going to correct my pronunciation?
Oh, it's Ganga River. There's like the EMS, I guess.
Ganga, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Ganga. But if you say Ganga in English, no one will know what you're talking about, right? In English, it's Ganges, but Ganga is, you're right. Yeah. Okay, so, all right, the last city that we need is called Amritsar. Amritsar, Amritsar, Amritsar. Those are the last cities that we need in India. In India, let's get the non-India cities. All right, so we have two in Pakistan that we need. Karachi and Lahore. Karachi and Lahore. Karachi, Karachi. It's on the coast there. And Lahore, Lahore. Okay, and it's right on the border near Amritsar. All right, and go ahead and get it out of your system now. I am aware, Lahore and Karachi, right? Like it's funny, right? Yeah, get it out of your system now, Kira, Michael. I see you guys, right? Get it out of your system now. All right. I taught 9th grade geography, right? And you say, oh, it's Karachi, and all the 9th graders are like, he said crotch, right? And then you back it up with Lahore, and they're like, ha ha ha, whore. Right, get it out of your system now. All right, in Bangladesh, the city is Dhaka. Dhaka, Dhaka. And here's the last one. You don't need it. It's not super important, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Okay, the last city is Sri Jayawardenepura Kati. Sri Jayawardenepura Kati. It's the capital of Sri Lanka. It means, interestingly enough, that's the language where Kishore Kumar's family comes from. Sri Jayawardenepura Kati. It's not really important. I just like to show you that I can spell it. It means the honored fortress that defends its people. Is what it means. It's the capital. Yeah. All right. So those are our cities. Those are the cities we need. Did anyone miss a city, or do you need it anymore? Yeah, Drew.
Isn't the capital of Sri Lanka Colombo?
Yeah, Colombo is what white people say. Sri Jayawardenepura Kati is what Sri Lankans say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Colombo is the name that the British used. But after they overthrew the British, they changed the name, and they changed the name to Sri Jayawardenepura Porakati, and the whole world said, "No, I'm not going to say that." And so most of the world still just says Colombo. Yeah. Anyway, are we good on cities? Okay, so the other thing that we need to do is religions. Okay, your map is probably too full, but we can make a note here. Okay, you can make a note on the side. All right, our first religion and our most important religion for this is Hinduism. Hinduism is going to be the primary religion of India. The majority of India is going to be Hindu. Okay, Hinduism is also in Nepal and Bhutan are both Hindu as well. All right, I want to make a note, especially for those of you who aren't Indians, but I want you all to not sound like an idiot, right? So Hinduism is the name of the religion. A Hindu, Hindu, is a person who practices the religion. Hindi is a language. It's the largest language in India, okay? I don't want you to get those mixed up. A lot of Americans mix up Hindu and Hindi, right? And I don't want you to sound like an idiot, right? If you sound like an idiot, I want you to do it on purpose. I don't want you to do it by accident, right? Sound like an idiot for, like, comedic effect. That's fine, right? But Hindu religious person, the person of the Hindu faith, the person of Hinduism, practices Hinduism. Hindi, the person who speaks the language Hindi. You guys with me on that? Okay. Most Hindi speakers are Hindus, right? But not necessarily. Okay. You could say this man speaks Hindi, but is a Muslim, right? Or this man is a Hindu, but lives in Salt Lake and therefore speaks English, or speaks some other like Tamil or Marathi or whatever, some other language. Okay. All right. The next religion that we need is Islam. Islam. So Islam is the religion for Pakistan, and Islam is the religion for Bangladesh. Okay, Islam. All right, Islam. The other thing I want you to make a note here is that there are still quite a few Muslims living in India. Okay, India is somewhere around 15% Muslim. About 15% of India is Muslim. Right, and which may not seem like a big number, but it's roughly the same number as like Latinos in Utah, right? Think of how often do you see Latinos in Utah, right? Like every day, multiple times a day, right? So this is the same for India. How often do you see a Muslim? Every day, multiple times a day, right? So 15% is a big enough number that you're going to see Muslims every day, multiple times a day, right? So, but Pakistan is almost totally Muslim, and Bangladesh is almost totally Muslim. All right. The last religion we need is Sikhism. Okay, Sikhism. I'm going to write it up here. Can you see it up there? All right, Sikhism, Sikhism. Sikhism. All right, so Sikhism, okay, first of all, let me get a pronunciation for you, okay? The correct way to say it is Sikhism. Sikhism, a person who practices Sikhism is Sikh, right? But I don't say that in American English because Americans don't know what you're talking about. Right? In English, we usually say Sikh, like S-E-E-K, Sikh, right? I'm aware that that's not the correct way to say it. I'm aware it's not the way that Sikhs say it. I'm aware it's not the way they say it in India, but I'm not in India. I'm talking to Americans who speak English. I need them to understand what I'm saying, and so I say Sikh on purpose. I purposely choose to pronounce it the American way, but I am aware of the correct way to say it, okay? Because it's a problem, right? If I tell you the boy in my first period is sick, you are not going to understand that he's wearing a turban. You're going to understand that he has coronavirus, right? And that's not what I mean, right? If I say the boy in my first period is sick and he's also sick, right? Then he's in a turban with coronavirus. Okay, so this is where we just have to be clear. Okay, all right. So I'm assuming that most of you know nothing about Sikhism. Is that right? Raise your hand if you know nothing or next to nothing about Sikhism. Close to nothing. Something pretty close to nothing. All right. Yeah. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of basics really quick. All right. So first of all, Sikhs are somewhere around like 1 to 1.5% of India. 1 to 2% of India. We can round it up to 2. That's fine. Round it up to 2. 2% of India. Okay, somewhere around like 80 million people, something like that. All right. Sikhs are the people that if you see like the stereotypical picture where it's like, welcome to India, and the dude has like a turban and a really long beard, he's probably a Sikh. Okay. Sikhs are the people who are have the religious requirement that they have to wear the head coverings, and they're also not allowed to cut their hair, right? Sikhs are monotheistic. Their religion is a mixture of Islam and Hinduism. So they believe in one God, like Muslims do, but they also believe in like reincarnation and dharma and karma the way that Hindus do, right? Because their religion is a little bit Hindu and a little bit Muslim, they find themselves the enemy of both. Okay, and they find themselves smack dab in the middle of both. Okay, Sneha, can you step out for a second and just keep people out? Give me just a moment, okay? All right, so we're gonna leave this here unless you guys have a question. Class is out and my mock trial people are coming in. So do we have any questions or comments or problems? Okay. This has been Geography Corner with Mr. Veenstra. We'll pick up actual history next class period. Cool? Cool, cool, cool. All right, don't forget, what's the last day for your test, that South Africa test? Michael Liu, when's the last day for the South Africa test?
The 14th.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Right? What happens on Thursday if you email me, Mr. Veenstra, I need more time? Am I going to give it to you? No. I'm going to let your tears fuel me into the future. All right. Last day is Thursday. Don't be late. Cool. Awesome possum.
There's no code on it, right? Like no password thing?
No code.
Okay.
It's open.
Okay.
All righty. I'll see you guys later. Okay.